Okay, guys. So let's try to sort of look at the questions that are given here. Uh, I want to focus on questions which are to do with first investment. So if you look at this one macroeconomic indicator is the level of investment. What determines the level of investment? Okay, so this is a very popular exam question. What are the factors that affect investment? So um, if we go to our notes, um, you might have got a chance to see this. I just got those notes here only. We've done factors affecting investment. So let's just talk about that. So this is what we're talking about, determinants of investment. Okay, so what is investment? Investment is basically your capital goods. So that investment basically is when firms expenditure on capital goods, right? And we know this that in the Keynesian theory, just to sort of reiterate what we're looking at, in the Keynesian theory, investment is an autonomous expenditure. Autonomous means not dependent on national income. So if this is my reference line, which is called AE is equal to Y line, and if you find that investment is going up from, let's say, the green line to the blue line, if the investment is going up, let's say from AE naught to AE1, where this rise is the change in investment as the expenditure firms decide to spend more, you will see the GDP to go up from Y naught to Y1. So on my Y axis, I have AE, which is C plus I plus G plus X minus M. On my X axis, I have your Y or national income. And what we're saying is this, that if you are going to see uh, this change in Y will be equal to change in I, which is your how much your AE is going up by, times your multiplier. Okay, so we say this, that the multiplier is basically helping us to actually have investment to go up by more. So a good way to look at this is that, for example, if I say your investment went up by 100, right? And if your multiplier is 5, then your change in Y will be more than proportionate change in I, which is going to be 500. Okay, so this means a small change in investment can lead to a large change in income or national income because of the multiplier. Okay, so that's the first thing we want to sort of I mean, I don't know whether we will want to sort of write about this or not, but I just want to sort of revise this. I may want to sort of talk about this just briefly here if I want to, but I just wanted to reiterate. Also, secondly, let's talk about the question, which is saying what are the determinants of investment? And the answer to this one is basically the first big determinant, according to Keynesian theory, is interest rates. According to the Keynesians, they say this, that when the interest rates go up, it is a rise in the cost of capital goods. So cost of capital goods go up, it becomes expensive to invest, and you will see investment levels to go down. And they use a theory called marginal efficiency of capital. Marginal efficiency of capital theory basically says this, that when you look at projects, let's say if I have 4 projects, so let's say projects, I have 4 projects, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and let's say each project require an initial investment of, let's say, $100, 100. Okay, so you're choosing between the 4 projects. You can choose all of them, or you can choose one of them, depending on, like we'll soon see, the rate of return. So let's say the return that you get when you put $100 in project 1, you get like $120. In project 2, you get 115. In project 3, you get, for example, 110. and project 4 you get, let's say, 105. So the rate of return, if I ask you guys, what's the rate of return? Anyone for the first project? What's the rate of return for the first project? 120 minus 100 is equal to 20. So what will be the rate of return, anyone? 20%. Does that make sense? Any questions? Yeah. So the rate of return is going to be 20%, or, and in this case, 15%. 110 minus 100 is like 10%, right?
Yes, sir.
And then it's going to be, for example, in this case, 10% and 5%. Okay. Now, what if I tell you guys the interest rate is 20%? If the interest rate is 20%, we'll say this, that of all the 4 projects, only the first one is viable. Why? Because remember, this rate of return is including even the opportunity cost. So this rate of return is what we call economic rate of return. So this means that the the first project will be economically viable given the interest rate is 20%. Given the interest rate goes down to 15%, 2 projects will become financially viable. And if the interest rate goes down all the way to like 5%, then the firm will be like, hey, uh, if I invest in the 4 projects, I get a return. For example, 20 minus 5 will be 15% return. Second project would have, and this is, by the way, pure profit, not economic. I mean, it's an economic profit of, let's say, 10%. This is 5%, and this is normal profit, so 0%. So all 4 projects will become financially viable. So in other words, what I'm trying to say is this, that the lower the interest rates, the lower will be your opportunity cost of putting your money elsewhere. So let's say if interest rate goes from, let's say, 20% to, let's say, 5%, one would argue this, that you are going to see investment level to go from $100 to, for example, all 4 projects, $400. So investment level will go up. So what we are trying to say is this, that interest rate falls, it's a lower opportunity cost of investment. More projects become financially viable, and therefore investment levels will go up. So we say this, that interest rate is kind of like the price of investment. Make sense? And this becomes like a kind of like a this is plan investment demand curve. So this is like a demand for investment, also called, now this, by the way, guys, this rate of return is also called the marginal. Marginal means extra. Efficiency means your return of capital. And that's why this theory is called marginal efficiency of capital theory, which says this, that the lower the interest rates, you will see it is becoming viable for the firms to invest more, and that's why level of investment will go up. Do we get that? Does that make sense? Any questions?
Yes, sir.
So,
No, sir.
so this is an important theory to remember, because when you're writing your answer, you can give a example of a table, and you can say this lower interest rates, because the first thing is this, the question that we were discussing focuses on this a lot. It's a theory that you need to know really well. The first is interest rates. Now, the second is basically, so interest rate is like a movement along the curve, but there could be a shift of the curve to take place as well. So how does shift of the curve take place? And basically, other factors, other non-price factors could be also affecting investment. For example, what about business confidence? If the business confidence go up, you will see level of investment to go up, and firms will be wanting to invest more at each and every level of interest rate. So irrespective whatever the interest rate is, you will see investment level to go up. Let's call this um, let's call this Q naught, Q naught, Q1. So this is I naught, I1. So firms will be investing more at each and every level of investment. So this is my planned investment. This is my interest rates. Are you all with me? Does that make sense? So this is more firms are confident about future. They will want to sort of invest more. That's one thing. The third thing we need to remember. Is there any question before we move on? Anything that is that is not clear?
It's fine, sir. You can continue.
Okay. The third thing we look at is, other than business confidence, which is basically whether firms are optimistic about the future or not. Like in this COVID time, you would assume firms are not probably optimistic to invest, right? Why? Because they are not thinking that demand will be so strong and all that, right? The third one is basically to do with what if cost of capital goods go down? Some technological breakthrough happens and cost of capital goods exogenously or independently go down. So if the cost of capital goods go down, one would argue this that uh, this thing will change. Your initial investment will change. Rate of return might remain the same, but initial investment, let's say rather than $100 now you only require $50, and that $50 machine is giving you 120 return. So 120 minus 50 over 50 is basically 70 over 50, which is one. What is 70 over 50? 7 over 5 times 100. Anyone? Anyone with a calculator?
Times what, sir?
120 minus 50 over 50.
Uh, 7/5.
Yep, 7 by 5 is how much? 7 by 5 is
140%.
140%. So you guys look at the return that happens just by, so for each and every level of return, the rate of return will go up. So can I say this? When the level of cost of capital goods go down, the initial investment amount falls, which means that firms will invest more at each and every level of investment. So guys, something like this will happen. Again, the shift will take place. Got it? So that's number 3. Number 4 is what about better technology or improvement in technology? What if improvement in technology takes place? Improvement in technology actually affects, now if you look at the table, which of these will my improvement in technology affect? Anyone?
So both initial investment, rate of return.
Maybe if initial investment doesn't really stay same, at least return will become better. What if the same $100 now give you better return from primarily because technology improves? Okay. Or even if the initial investment go up, but the return level may go up. Make sense? And that basically means improvement in technology means higher higher efficiency of capital, which means higher rate of return again, which basically means higher level of investment at each and every level of investment. So, sorry, actually, each and every level of interest rates, something which we need to understand. So, guys, what will happen is there something like this will happen. So, again, the curve will shift to the right. So, if they ask you what are the factors that affect investment, which is a very popular exam question, we just saw it. Well, the answer will be interest rates. Number two will be business confidence, cost of capital goods, and improvement in technology. Okay. So this is basically your, go back to the question. This is your answer to this one. Okay. 12 mark question.
I had a question, sir.
Yeah.
How do you understand if it'll be a movement along or a shift?
The only factor that can cause a movement along is interest rates. The rest of them are shifts of the curve. For us, interest rate is the price factor.
Okay.
Make sense? Okay,
Yes,
this
sir.
one, guys, this one is a B part. Discuss how a large increase in investment may affect an economy. Remember, I just did this right now. First part is that when investment go up, your GDP go up via the multiplier. Isn't that true?
Yes, sir.
And therefore, this will basically means this that investment can cause my GDP to go up. And GDP goes up. Is that good for the economy? Yes, because higher GDP means more jobs, more output, and one may argue even more sort of higher standard of living. Yeah,
Yes, sir.
yeah. Can you, Daima, mute yourself because I think your thing is coming into
Person.
the. Okay, so so guys, this is one thing, but there's another point that we can raise is because they're saying discuss. So means pros and cons. Um, you can also say this that there is also an accelerator theory you can talk about here as an advantage, which according to the accelerator theory, when let's say I go up, we know this y go up via the multiplier. But when y go up, when GDP go up, when your national income go up, guys, when your national income is going up, y is going up, what's the impact of GDP to go up on your economy? And the answer is this that higher GDP can also cause the accelerator to kick in because we said this according to accelerator theory when y go up, you can see I to go up via the accelerator, which argues this that I go up by some factor alpha, and they said that I go up because your firm GDP may be rising at an increasing rate, and that could basically begin a cycle of economy growing. So we can say this kind of an argument that an initial increase in investment can cause GDP to go up, which can cause further rise in investment because of the accelerator, and this process can lead the economy to full employment. Okay, so this could be good for the economy, right? So, so is there any disadvantage of this? And this is to do with basically some of the arguments we'll do later is something to do with, for example, inflation. Because look at this, guys, ADAS framework. I'm going to do ADAS framework, and I'll revisit this when we are going to go further. But you can also talk about this that according to our ADAS framework, which you must have done in your AS, which is C plus I plus D plus X minus M. And when the investment go up, AD rises, AD rises from 80 naught to 81, right? And you will see a situation where your price level will go up. So AD is rising, GDP is rising, AD is rising, GDP is rising, but so is price level. So this could lead to inflation to happen. So there's an inflationary effect on the economy. Okay. So another disadvantage, we may argue that this could actually cause inflationary effect. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Yep. There are other arguments that we can also write here, which we can go over later, which is to do link with kind of like economic growth. So while economic rise in sort of investment can cause economic growth to happen, but that could basically be not so good sometimes for the economy because economic growth means, like rising AD means inflation to happen. So there is a trade-off in terms of that. But also there are some other trade-offs in terms of when you look at GDP to rise, you might see distribution of income to become unfair and other kind of problems that can happen. But I'll save that for a later discussion because we'll look into that later. But let's look at one more question here, which is to do this one that we just discussed. So this part is easy. What are the determinants of investment, which we just have been doing so far? But what about this one? If investment increases, it will cause an increase in output. If output increases, it will cause an increase in investment. Discuss whether both these statements can be true. So in this kind of a question, they are asking us that I goes up, Y go up. And we know this because this is what we call the multiplier effect. Remember? We just talked about the multiplier effect. Okay, so you first talk about how an increase in investment can cause output to go up, which is the first part of this question. And the answer is to this is we'll explain what we call our multiplier effect. So multiplier theory. And multiplier, by the way, multiplier is 1 over MPS in a two-sector model. It's 1 over MPS plus MPT in a three-sector model. So this is two-sector, three-sector, and it's 1 over MPS plus MPT plus MPM in a four-sector model. Okay, so that's something which you need to remember that not that we need to mention this here, I'm just sort of revising the idea that what a multiplier. So we can say this that you're like the larger the multiplier, the larger will be the change in the larger will be the change in income. So I can write this: the larger the multiplier, the larger will be the change in income due to a change in AE. Right, guys? So that's the first part when we talk about the multiplier theory and so on. Then they said this part, which is, let me use another color. If output increases, it will cause an increase in investment. What is that? If output increases, if output increases, it will cause an increase in investment, and the answer is yes, because of the accelerator theory. According to accelerator theory, if output increases, there will be an increase in investment. So that's what something you can also talk about. In fact, you have to talk about, and you can talk about this. That's where we say this, that if if let me choose another color. If output is rising at an increasing rate, the theory says this, that if output is rising at a faster rate, firms will need to invest more in order to meet the increased demand. So in order to meet the increased demand, the firms may need to do that, guys. And as a result of this, you will see something like this, which we did draw earlier. So this is your I, this is your change in Y. So as your output is rising, you'll see level of investment to go up as well. And the slope, by the way, the slope is called alpha, or the capital output ratio. Okay, so you talk about that. There's a conclusion we can write here, that will this process keep on going on and on? You know, like when I go up, Y go up through the multiplier. And when Y go up, we say I go up again through the accelerator. And we say this process will continue till a certain point. And that certain point is that till the economy reaches full employment. Makes sense? So when the economy reaches full employment, that is the point where probably one would argue this, the economy will probably doesn't have further capacity to grow, and that could be a problem. So discuss whether both these statements can be true, and the answer is yes, they can be true. However, there is a limit to they can let the economy grow. Okay. Do we have any questions?
Sir, after full employment, the economy like will fall, right?
No,
There's a
we
chances.
say sometimes something called saturation of a concept, like the economy stops growing any further. Theoretically, we say economy will stop growing because you don't have. If you further in make your demand to go up, you will only see inflation to happen. So something I want to focus on next time, where when we discuss the inflationary effect and deflationary effect. So there could be an inflationary effect if you let the economy let the economy go further. Okay.
Okay, sir.
I want to discuss this question. This is we have some time. This is a very interesting question. Number 6-1. They say this, that the Boeing 787 Dreamliner was assembled in the US. The United Airlines, an American private company, had ordered 50 of these. So this is basically a firm is doing investment, right? Imagine that the US was a closed economy with no government. Closed economy with no government means closed. Sorry?
Is it a two-sector economy?
Very good, very good. So closed economy with no government is two sector, right? Which means, what is your multiplier? 1 over MPS. Okay, well, your multiplier is going to be smaller. Why? Because you don't have government, so there is no MPT, marginal propensity to tax, and there is no import and export happening because you're a closed economy, right? Analyze the increase in national income from this investment in an aircraft, in a new aircraft might be different than if it's for open mixed economy. Mixed means there's government, so your multiplier will become 1 over MPS plus MPT plus MPM, something I just talked about. So you move from 2 sector, you move to like 4 sector. And as a result of this, guys, when you invest in a 2 sector, when we invest in a 2 sector, one would argue this, that the multiplier, let's say $100 investment, if this change in I is equal to 100, and you're in a 2 sector, Y, and let's say your multiplier is 1 over MPS, and let's say MPS is, let's say 0.2. So 1 over 0.2 means 5. So your change in Y is going to be, for example, 500. So when your MPS is 0.2, your change in Y will be 500. But when your MPS, when your multiplier becomes, when your multiplier has more of withdrawals happening in terms of MPS and MPT and MPM, your multiplier will become, let's say, smaller, 1 over, let's say, 0.5. And what is 1 over 0.5 equal to? 2, for example. And therefore, change in Y will be equal to 2 times 100, which means only 200. What I'm trying to say here is this, that as the economy has more sectors that come in, for example, from a 2 sector, it goes to 4 sector, your withdrawals increase. And when withdrawals increase, your multiplier goes smaller, and therefore the same level of investment may result in lower GDP to increase because of higher withdrawals. Got it? So that's a good question, because it's kind of like asking us to compare a 2 sector model, where the multiplier is 1 over MPS, to a 4 sector where the multiplier is 1 over MPS plus MPT plus MPM. And then we show how the level of investment, same level of investment, can lead to a lower rise in national income the more the economy move from 2 to 3 to 4 sector, because there are more withdrawals that will take place. Okay, so that's a good question to revise that concept. Okay, any question before we move on?
No, sir. It's just the economy will grow further if there is no withdrawals, like only one withdrawal as saving. And if we increase another withdrawal to taxation, then it will grow a little less. That
Yeah.
is the concept here, right?
Yes, the concept is basically that when you have more withdrawals happening, your multiplier shrinks, making the economy grow slower. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I want to end on this note, but as we move along, now what I want you guys to do for next time is basically make sure you prepare your